Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlene. I'm career advisor here at the IBF Careers Connect, part of the career advisory team. So today's topic, we're going to just be talking about whether just exploring, also have this learning together with you, all right, about what makes a good CV that and why he's not getting interviews. Okay, so we hope that this is a short and practical session. We're going to be sharing some examples so that we can learn together, share with you some of our observations. And without further ado, I'll just go on to the next slide. And oh, yeah, I need to introduce my co-facilitator, Eileen, as well. Yeah, so she will be also covering some parts of today's session. Eileen, you want to say hi? You're muted.
Hi everyone, welcome. And yeah, we would like this session because it's quite a small number in attendance today. So we'd like this session to be very interactive. We do encourage everyone to ask as many questions as you can, and we will be stopping frequently to address all your questions. So keep them coming. Over to you, Charlene.
Right, thanks, Eileen. Yeah, so and on the questions part, just feel free to post it on the Q&A section. So we will take pause in between the case studies that we're going to share. So this is not going to be a theoretical download of sorts like maybe some of those that you have attended, because we believe that you have enough literature on those fronts and can easily find them on Google or any other resources or other complementary workshops. So today we're just going to go zoom in straight into examples so that you can better relate and maybe apply it to your own resume. Yeah. So what we're going to share today really are some of our observations, some of the collective learning. I think we don't proclaim to know it all because this industry is really vast and wide. So we're going to pick some examples and hopefully that could help you to kickstart looking at where, how to troubleshoot where is the problem that you are facing. Okay. So we're going to cover understanding the recruitment funnel today. All right, just to get everybody into, looking at what's a problem statement that we are trying to address here, all right, in your job search journey. And then we'll look at some case studies in terms of what are common issues. And also during this part, you can also feel free to ask questions in our Q&A box, yeah? Okay, so about this recruitment funnel, I think in all job search or career switch journey, there's always this process that we will always we will encounter. I think first of all is we will always start with a job advertisement, right? And of course, with job advertisement, then what are the areas that you are going to be zooming on? Whether are you selecting the right job ads, right? In your job search journey, and from the job shortlisting part where maybe thankfully your resume has enough content that meets the ATS, software, the settings that have been set for the job role, you're able to land yourself in the interviews, and finally going for a few rounds, you're able to land on the final interview and then finally job offer. So today's session, we want to encourage you to look at it as a holistic approach where if you, example, in this like a 5-step process, if you are already at the interview stage, then do not need to focus too much on the resume. Unless, of course, then the kind of interviews that you're getting, right, you're getting calls for are not the kind of job roles that you want. Then maybe you need to review the resume part of your job search tool. But otherwise, I think be strategic in your job search. Do not be too focused, because maybe some coaches that you go to, the first conversation you had is about resume. But I think it really depends on how the conversation that you have with coaching professionals, depending on what was the focus of the conversation. So if the conversation is going from the perspective of looking at where the bottleneck is, where you're not breaking through, I think this recruitment funnel, we want to share this with you today, is really for you to be able to have a quick area view in terms of asking yourself, assessing where are you stuck at, then how are you going to break through it. So we hope that today's CV critique discussion sessions will be able to help you to have a bit more clarity about where your bottleneck is. Yeah. So Eileen, do you want to add on anything on this front?
Yeah, so just to round up this segment, right, the concepts that we like everyone to take away is, number one, this is a 5-stage process that you are going to go through. And the key takeaway from that is that at every stage of the process, if you're already at stage 3, do not go back to stage 1 just because a coach or anyone else tells you to do so. Focus on overcoming a certain stage. And the second concept that we'd like you to take away from this is also that this is a funnel. That means that at every stage, you are going to be running, you are going to be avoiding elimination at every stage. So keep that in mind. Point number one is this is a 5-stage process. Understand the stage that you are at before you decide what are your immediate steps. And number 2, your goal and your objective is to avoid elimination at every stage. So everything that you do, whether it is writing a CV, preparing for a job interview, is designed to help you avoid being eliminated at that stage. Yep.
Great, thanks, Eileen. Yeah, I like the word that you use about elimination. It really reminds me, like, those reality show like Amazing Race, right? It's an elimination stage kind of thing. So at every stage you need to strategize, and indeed the whole approach from the start of your job search to the final stage, the final stage on stage 5, right, which is the offer stage. In every part is a strategy on its own, and yet it forms a holistic strategy, because how you apply for roles and how you further shape it so that you are able to land better interviews, and then from interviews you can land better offer. So at each stage is a strategy itself. Yeah. So, and of course, it really needs to look at where you are at. I think this is a good pause stop here, if you could review that. Yeah. Okay, so next, we're going to cover about some of the issues. Okay, I think first of all, it's about the ATS systems, right? A lot of time, first of all, it's a job fit issue. I think based on some of my observation, it's someone wants to move from operations to front office kind of roles, right? So what are the areas that you are actually fitting to that job role? What are the issues there? Okay, and in terms of the applicant tracking system as well, are you actually having enough content in what you have prepared in your document, right? For you to pass through the ATS system. Okay. Then next is that we also observed that some of the CVs, they are actually not customized at all to the job requirements. Especially where the job is actually like a concern, right? There's really not much of a match there, because perhaps there are certain certification that's looking at, then you didn't put it in your resume. Okay, right. And sometimes also we observe, because of people who have many years experience, they find that they definitely want to put in as much information as possible, because they feel that they do not want to lose out any important information. But that also is a blind spot, because you need to know what is the hiring manager looking for. Even if you put a lot and you assume the person will spot it, it's a very challenging situation, because after it passes the ATS system, it lands on a human eye, then the focus and the interest will wane, because it's too long. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, similarly to CV that's too long, it also can be very wordy. Like later on, we will share with you some examples in terms of what are some of our observation, what we mean by that, because there are certain action verbs, or that's been used too many in one para. It doesn't help the hiring manager to be able to see that positive difference that you're gonna be different from another candidate. Yeah, if the other person has the same related skills or qualification as you. Okay. And career gaps, they are not addressed really. I think it's about sometimes you thought that if you try to skip it, or because it's too glaring and all that, I guess if the gap is, for me, I find that if the gap is too long, then you try to avoid it. It's very, very hard, because people the HR are very sharp. They are able to actually spot it. Yeah. So really, we want to encourage you to look at it from the elimination perspective, because these are areas that we feel or we observe also that are going through the minds of HR and also the hiring manager when they look at candidates. Yeah. So Eileen, do you want to add on anything from here? I think that's all.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Charlene, for that great overview. And I'm going to briefly go into detail in each of these bullet points so that for those of you who might have issues with any one of them, please feel free while I'm speaking to pose your specific question in the Q&A box, and we will try to address them. So the first and biggest issue we have where we have got people who send tons of resumes and no responses coming back, right, is a job fit issue. So those of you who are considering a career pivot, here is the very first test that you can apply to yourself. If the job description has got 10 requirements and you only meet about 2 or 3 of them, then can we suggest to you that this might be a job that is not even worth your time to apply for? And by job requirements, what we are talking about is the technical requirements where they say, okay, you need, say, a certain certification, you need 5 years experience in accounting, finance, or whatever. We are not talking about things like agile, for lack of a better word, fast learner, team player, and all those. Those are not technically job requirements. So that's done with the first point, job fit issue. The second issue that we're talking about, applicant tracking system issues, right, is where you may be a good fit for the role, but because of the way you have written your CV, it is not having sufficient number of matching keywords with the job description for you to pass through the automated system that the employer is using to sieve out the resumes. So again, as I'm talking, I want everyone to think about, how am I going to stop myself? I mean, how am I going to avoid being eliminated at every stage? So the third point, when we talk about the CV is not being customized to job requirements, especially where job titles are concerned, what we're saying is that you may have been a finance manager before, and the job requires a finance manager, but what if your previous employer did not call you a finance manager? The previous employer calls you an administrative manager. In this situation, it is not wise for you. I mean, it is wise for you to include the word finance manager in your CV somewhere, so that again, you're not eliminated by the ATS or by the human that's actually reading your CV. Okay, and the CV too long and too wordy is two separate points, because in our practice, we typically see a lot of people who come in with CVs who are 4, 5, up to 10 pages. I've even once seen a CV that's 55 pages. Just as a general guide to everyone, in Asia, 1 to 3 pages is acceptable. If you're applying to an American company, then 1 to 2 pages should be the norm for you. And also, on top of that, you need to ensure that your CV, the objective of a CV is to get you to the next stage, which is to get you an interview. So when you think in terms of that, you have to remember that the first half of your CV should be able to get that person to ring you up already. Yeah. And then the next point, having a CV too wordy, you can have a 2-page CV that's crammed with 1,000 different keywords and adjectives in it, and it makes it hard. You may pass the ATS, but you're going to make it very hard for the human that comes after that to want to select you. So that's one point. And career gaps that are not addressed, these career gaps that are not addressed will not affect you in the ATS process, but it will raise serious questions in the humans who are reading it. So again, if I were the human who is reading it and I've got 2 equally qualified candidates, one with an unexplained career gap, then the human tendency is that the recruiter or the human is just going to say, forget it, I'm not even going to call up this person to understand the gap. I'm just going to call up the person who's given me sufficient information. Yeah, so that's my part for bringing this into deeper detail for Charlene. And okay, so we are again having no questions, so happy to go forward. Thank you, Charlene.
Okay, so in terms of the, Eileen has mentioned quite a fair bit also about the elimination process, and also sometimes when you send out a lot of application, we do get a lot of candidates telling us that they send out so many and they have customized quite a fair bit, and they're not getting through the pile, so we just want to encourage you not to give up. Sometimes it is really not you. A lot of times, sometimes the competition is probably very, very stiff, and that it's just not the right timing, and that because for a typical job posting, it's an ideal profile that the hiring manager is looking at, and when they receive application, it comes with many different types of profiles, right? So sometimes don't be so hard on yourself if you're not breaking through, but to keep being open and looking at what are the areas that reviewing your job search tools like your resume, if you are stuck at the resume application stage. Yeah. So really, let's maybe have a look at some of the examples that we're going to share later. Then perhaps could give you some inspiration to work on areas that you want to improve further in your resume. Yeah. Okay. So we have profile 1. Over to you, Eileen.
Thank you, Shirley.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. Is the audience ready? I'm going to share quite a few things in this particular slide. So I invite everyone with questions to just join in. And if you don't understand something, feel free to post in the Q&A. So number one, this is what we call a comparison technique when you are applying for a job, when you are in the stage of writing your CV. So what I often ask our candidates to do is to have the job ad on the left-hand side and then to have your CV on the right-hand side. Right? And then you will be able to compare for yourself whether you actually meet the job requirements. So in this case, we've got a job ad for, I think, head of credit or something. And on the right-hand side, we've got extracts from a real person's CV who applied for this role. So if you can look at the job ad first, I'm going to quickly briefly go through them. The 3 main areas are credit approval, portfolio management, and credit risk. And then they've got some hard requirements in there. Minimum bachelor's degree, they got 10 years experience with wholesale lending in banks, at least 5 years in a credit approval evaluator capacity, and experience in structured trade finance. And then the very last part, good written and verbal communication skills in English, good command of English. Mandarin will be an added advantage. Now, I separated these job ad into 3 main areas to help everyone see what are the key thrusts. So the first box that has got 3 bullet points, credit approval, portfolio management, credit risk. These are the 3 general areas of expertise that every candidate applying for this job ought to have. And if you look at the right-hand side, you can see that the job applicant in this case does have all the required experience in all these 3 areas. And for those of you who are not in this area, I also invite you to take a look at the job ad and the CV and try to make some sense of it for yourself, because in the same way that you are doing this, there will be an HR person who is also not a credit person who is also looking at this. And so if you're able to make the connection between, okay, this CV is a match to the job ad, therefore I'm going to call that person up, then this is the yardstick by which we will gauge whether our HR person or recruiter is going to call you up. Yep, and then you can see, feel free to comment in the Q&A box as well. The second box, yeah, so in the second box on the left-hand side for the job ad, right, we've got what we call hard requirements in the CV, hard requirements in the job ad, which means that these are very critical requirements. And on certain areas like 10 years credit experience, give and take, if I have up to 5 years or more, I would apply. But if the job ad requires 10 years and you've got only 2 to 3 years experience, then it's probably not a good idea to apply for something like this. And the reason why they are in that second box is because they are all very evidence-based requirements that you can't really run away from. Yeah. And then on the third box, right, is what we call requirements that are there, but it's pretty hard to quantify it except by evidencing it through your actual written CV, which means good written communication skills in English, right? So if you send in a CV with tons of grammar errors, then it's very clear that you are not fitting that requirement. Same thing. So in general, when the requirement is something very non-tangible, like good written and verbal communication skills, do not repeat in your CV and write things like good written English and Mandarin communication skills. It's just copying wholesale what is in the job ad is not going to help you much. I'm going to ask Charlene at this point if you've got any comments before I will add in a final comment on this slide, and then we can move on.
Right, I think I totally agree with you. I think this comparison technique really is very helpful. I think I want to add on is that, like for example, the language proficiency part that Eileen mentioned, there are certain roles that require you to liaise with maybe a Japan counterpart or China counterparts. Then in this instance, then it will be better instead of saying that you're proficient in conversational Japanese or conversational professional Mandarin or Chinese, right? It's better to put in other areas to describe your proficiency. Yeah, so that will help you to expand your vocabulary in terms of showing your potential fit for this kind of role where they have stated a specific region language proficiency, because you need to liaise with clients from that region or from the specific country. Like China is a very big market, Japan market and all that. Yeah, and a lot of time it's not because they are being biased or anything like that, but it's largely because the documents and also the people that you have to liaise with, they are more proficient in their country's language. Yeah, so you need to show the evidence. Like earlier on, I think about the elimination concept that Eileen has elaborated on. Really, if compared to another person who has the same experience as you, how will you stand out? How will you make yourself a stronger candidate? What other evidence you can put in to show that you are what they are, you are a close match to what they are looking for? Yeah.
And before oh, okay, great. Thank you, Teo, for putting in this. Yeah, you brought out the next point that I was going to bring up. Thank you so much. Yes, in this case, I wanted to highlight that for the CV that was sent in this case, right, you do notice that this guy has all the requisite experience, all the relevant keywords, and he's got hard evidence, like 10 million to 800 million portfolios, and he's even written very specifically. He's done MNCs in APAC, local SMEs, and he's done loans of up to 300 accounts and all that. And yes, you are right there. You see, on paper, you can't really downplay your years of experience, but there are ways to de-emphasize it. For example, what this guy did was by writing there 27 years since 1994, you are kind of overemphasizing the fact that you're already 27 years experience when the advertisement asked for only 10 years. And when you say since 1994, again, we are not sure what company this is, but you have to be very careful when you write things like, I've got 40 years of experience and I've been working since 1965 or something. You really, we do not want to, maybe ageism is a dirty word in this environment, but we need to face the facts. And, what we want to do again is to reduce and avoid elimination. So you don't want to put in unnecessary emphasis in your CV for things that are not entirely within your control. So thank you for that.
Yeah, if I can add on that, I think it's also, you observe that in this CV example, there's some unconscious bias as well, the candidate himself or herself, right? The words 27 years, I see so many repetition in this short extract, right? So the candidate himself or herself already had this bias in that sense. So there's something that we need to be mindful of, that if you want to lighten, and yet do not want to eliminate the fact that you have 27 years, you can still try to lighten your competencies in your CV when you want to apply for a junior role. You know, it's just that you do not need to repeat so many times 27 years, 27 years, 27 years. So the HR may be open, but the way it's being repeated also kind of like, drowned on the fact that, I'm very qualified, are you going to take me, kind of thing. But maybe what is most practical on the hiring perspective is that, are you able to do the job of this junior role? Do you have the hands-on experience? So that's what the kind of evidence that you need to put in your resume, so that you can try to be a better fit versus the job ad, and hopefully pass the ATS, right, Eileen?
Yeah, and I think another point we also wanted to add, right, is that very often when you attend a resume writing workshop, you're going to be given a generic rule that says, oh, you should show only 10 to 15 years worth of experience in your CV and completely ignore the rest. I think in this case, what we'd like everyone to practice is apply the rule only as it fits your situation. If you're applying for a chief marketing officer role or something, a role that requires seniority, it will benefit you to put that. But if you know that you're really applying for a role that is that you consider yourself overqualified for, then it will be more prudent to just leave your experience at 15 years of experience, and that's that. Yeah. And one more, Shirley, you have anything to add? And then I'll add in one more tip, and then we can go.
Okay, so I think one more thing I thought to add on is like what Eileen has mentioned, be strategic. Like basically what she's saying is like being strategic and focus on what is important. Like if the role is looking at someone with more junior operations experience, and you have like 27 years experience, then you focus on those parts of your career where it demonstrates that you have the competencies. Then it's actually won't show the seniority or overqualification so much. Yeah, focus on what is important and relevant to the hiring manager and to the job ad, basically. Yeah.
And one last tip before we move on, and this is more related to cover letter. I have had one story of a candidate who used to be very successful in getting interviews from a cover letter, and what she did in her cover letters was to include a simple table like this. So left-hand side, job ad requirements, and right-hand side, how she fit. So just another idea for everyone to consider. Yeah, okay, I think we are ready to move on. Okay, this is the same candidate whose CV, and this is a different job ad altogether. And if you look at this particular job ad, right, in this job ad, on the left-hand side, you will see that the requirements are all the very I would say intangible requirements that are very, very difficult to provide evidence for. What this person has done is he or she has actually tried his or her best to add in what can fit this job ad. So for example, when the person says, I have team lead abilities and strong expertise in this area, this is a direct reference to willingness to work with others to understand and all that, and so on and so forth. So the fact that the next requirement, which is meticulous and keen eye for detail, if you looked at the original CV, you will notice that that CV is meticulous and keen eye. So this is what we are saying, in that when you write your CV, the way you write your CV is almost always going to give your personality and your personality traits and attributes away. So that's one thing. And things like, okay, I'm going to mention that, things like recognize or stakeholder management, team lead. I mean, these are all, to us, is very vague stuff that, words like being recognized for this or that should not be written. They should be evidenced, which means if you have managed 10 teams over 20 years, you can put that. Putting in something that says I am recognized or I am experienced, it doesn't help you in any way, unless it is being supported by evidence, as hard evidence in the rest of the CV. So that's all I have for this case.
Okay. Yeah, I think I don't have anything to add on for this one. Yeah, but really it's about the hard evidence. Try to avoid general, generic statements. I totally agree with Eileen, because a lot of time I observe candidates who come to us with their resume with very generic key skills words in their resume, like stakeholder engagement, project management. But what does that mean? How do you contextualize to the job ad so that the hiring manager can tell, other than you stating that you have 27 years experience in XXX, what else? So you've noticed that this process is very much like a stacking out of evidence from the introductory to the skill sets, and then to actually the war scars record, like you can show off in your resume. Is basically like your achievement, your highlights that you can provide further evidence, because anybody can say they have stakeholder management, but from the perspective of a credit risk manager versus an RM manager is very different. Right, so it's only when you're able to state that positive difference that you bring to the role, the value that you can bring for the operations to run even more smoothly and achieve the KPI and all that, you need to show that in your resume. Okay, anything else? If not, I'll move on.
Ready to move on. And
right. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to ask. Even if the examples that we share is not relevant to your field, if you could share with us what's on your mind, just feel free to ask, because we're here for the next 45 minutes or so. So we're just gonna be sharing the examples as best we can, and we know that we can't share everything, so we do our best to show the best examples that has come to us. Hold on. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now I'll go on to profile 2. Okay, so moving on to similar examples that Eileen has shared. Okay, so this is also again another extension example of the comparison technique, all right, where we have this job role, all right, for investment analyst versus a profile that we receive. Okay, and we want to highlight to you that actually for this role, what is being highlighted is area that we see that there's potential match. So like example, this role, it's looking for someone very specifically have experience working with the CIO and management level in terms of the reporting and research preparation. And this particular candidate also have that level of exposure in supporting C-level for analysis and recommendation. And this candidate very specifically even state the region, which is what I liked in this example, because some candidate, they just put that, oh, they have supported, but they didn't state the region, the area of expertise, like I mentioned earlier on, like other examples, like, oh, you have worked with the Tokyo Exchange team and all that, in terms of doing analysis or recommendation. You need to state that region, because sometimes maybe it's assumed that the reader would know, but it's better to put in. Okay, then another thing is the job role here, the example also look at area of expertise, like in familiar with private equity funds. So this candidate himself actually also have experience in this area. And he even states, I just didn't mark up that his experience is in the area of aviation and energy sectors. So if you notice, these are areas that you need to be mindful of, that you are putting in this related experience. And also in this particular case, this candidate has experience working on, based on the fact that this person has actually worked with on the shareholder reports and market updates. It requires this person to have experience also working with different departments and all that to be able to put this report through. So this resume would stand a potential chance. And if you ask me, I would like this resume to actually provide a little bit more evidence in terms of the kind of stakeholders, because it may be assumed that just at the C-level management liaison, which is important and relevant to the role, but what else? So that it shows that this candidate is someone who is adept at working with various different team, because the job order is actually looking at someone who is able to blend in with a performance-driven and team environment. So it doesn't say that the successful candidate need to be a team player, but this description here already says a lot in terms of what other evidence that you can beef up in your resume to show that you are a team player. Because there are people who are in a big organization where the structure is very narrow, right? Where this role, let's say investment analyst, only work with C-level, but maybe don't liaise with the others because people just send him information, that's all, right? But for this particular job, this job order, the company is looking at people who thrives in a team environment. So when this candidate review the resume, you need to be able to be creative in not looking at what's the skills this person is able to fit, but also what are the areas that could give this hiring manager more clues, more evidence that he is a good candidate for the role. So it could be areas like familiar with, being working in dynamic teams, working in, and also more evidence in terms of like how do you work on the financial modeling part of things, could be more areas in those technical skill sets. Yeah. Okay. Anything you want to add on, Eileen? Okay. I'll move on to the next one. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. Yeah. Because it's only when you ask, then we are able to share different tips, because we see quite a wide spectrum of candidates. So it's not possible to share everything in this 1.5 hours. So we do our best, and we take clues also from the questions that you ask so that we can share with you the relevant ones. Yeah. And make this a meaningful time for you. Okay, so the next one is on another candidate, okay, with also equities investment experience versus a job role for executive analyst. Okay, so there are areas that I have highlighted. Basically, these are areas that, that I find that this candidate have potential fit for this role. Okay, like example, direct equities investment. Okay, then in the job order, let's talk about our asset class. All right, and also being able to monitor, review. That's got a lot of to do with deadlines and quality control. Okay, and also the fact that this candidate is someone who has experience with back office operations. All right, so that is very helpful for this job order, because this job description here actually where the office have a lot of investment administration part of things, which actually would actually benefit well from this candidate who has back office operations exposure, because the candidate actually design and implement. So one of the areas which I feel that this particular candidate can actually expand more to be a closer fit for this role is that I think is providing a little bit more evidence actually in terms of what exactly are some of the highlight of success that shown from his or her experience in designing back office operations work. Yeah, because this is to do with showing more evidence in terms of actually, how successful, how do you measure success? What is your success metrics in a sense in your CV that you feel that it's most relevant to this role that you want to apply for? Because that also tell the hiring manager whether how well you understand the job description, all right, whether you have also that interest, that kind of personality, like earlier on, Eileen mentioned about also being able to infuse your personality from the way that you write about your achievements, write about your profile, so these are actually building up the building blocks for the hiring manager to what kind of impression that you want to have the manager to take away from reading. Okay, so and I think in particular for the achievements for this particular candidate CV, I think it's good that example, the second achievement is it contributed, right? From when to when. So what does it mean by contributed? Okay, so then we need to find another way to describe what does it mean by contribution. So we do not have more details of this candidate, but my suggestion is that to state what is your role involved, all right? What is the KPI that was achieved during that period while you are being a key team player in the investment team? Okay, and then another thing is, I think this part, yeah, the multitasking part, right? I find that this is good as a supplementary achievement, but it does not need to be on the top 3. Actually, if you ask me, it should be on the last 2 achievements. Even when we look at achievements, we need to also prioritize those that's most relevant to the role, and those that's least relevant but important, like being multitasking. What are the evidence that you show that you're a great multitasker, or you are a self-initiated team player, meaning that you are showing evidence where you actually spotted the problem and you are actually able to drive continuous improvement in the back office operations or in other administrative matters. That would be something that can complement. Yeah. Okay, anything to add on, Amy? No? Okay. Do you have any questions? Just wondering.
So far, no questions.
Okay, good. We have a very quiet crowd today. Okay, let me go to the next one. Okay, the next one we have, Eileen, you want to take this one?
Yes, okay. So the next one, so again, we are inviting, now these are real life examples, and we are inviting those of you who do not have particular interest in this area, feel free to post your issues or questions in the Q&A. So I'm going to go down again, the job ad on top and the actual CV on the bottom. Yeah. In this case, right, this is a financial control manager role. And if you look at the 1, 2, 3, okay, if you look at the top 2 bullet points, degree holder, 5 years, minimum 5 years experience in financial reporting. So that's a hard requirement. You can't quite run away from that. Good understanding of accounting regulations. Now, even though they said good understanding, that understanding must be evidenced by your actual work experience. Right. Again, strong ability to communicate in Mandarin, that is going to be evidenced by your actual working experience. And then the rest of it, comfortable communicating across business functions, levels of seniority. These are all what we call very vague requirements, but they can only be answered by actual achievements or job relevant experience within your CV. And if you will look at things like a fast learner who is able to work independently as a team, able to work under pressure, meet deadlines, self-motivated, all these words, right? You can see that a lot of people look at these last 3 bullet points as job requirements, and you end up applying for a job with you thinking that you meet only the last 3. So this is one key reason why people don't get interviews. If you don't meet the top 3 requirements, and then you apply for a job on the basis of the last 3 requirements. So we are going to take a look at what this particular candidate below has put in, and I'm going to give our comments on it, and then you can think about what we are saying and see if it applies to you in your situation. So first off, the title, results-oriented financial control manager. Now, the 2 words, results-oriented, is overused in CV. So if you have it in your CV now, I think you can safely remove it, because everyone else who sends in their CV is going to be results-oriented, right? And if you look at the sentences, I'm going to talk about the good parts of this particular profile. If you look at the right-hand side, where the candidate has written down core competencies. Now, this is very good. The core competencies alone will tell the reader whether he or she meets the requirements of the job ad. And on the basis of that, I can proceed to quickly flip through the resume and decide whether I want to call this person up for an interview. Now, what I want to highlight in the left-hand side, that whole box of text underneath the results-oriented financial control manager is this. You see, if you just look at the first sentence alone, a resourceful and dynamic person with progressive experience in managing a finance department in areas of so on and so forth. And then you see in this sentence, right, there is about 4 or 5 lines. I already have so many keywords that are specific hard evidence for the role, but I added in resourceful, dynamic, and progressive. So you're forcing the reader to use brain power to understand those words before moving on to the actual words that are of meaning to you. The next sentence, a strong growth-oriented finance professional continuously seeking effective improvement. and proven meticulous with the ability to multitask. So you see, I am using my hands to count the number of adjectives that this person has inserted into just one sentence alone. So within 1 or 2 sentences, this person has already inserted something like 10 adjectives. So if your CV starts to look like this, this is a highlight to you. Do avoid doing that, because every word, right, proven, meticulous, multitask, positive, proactive, analytical, strong, and problem solving. I am pausing at every stage to read and to understand that before I can move on to see whether is this person a fit for the role. So clearly, I mean, I hope that everyone here can see that when you put in too many of these adjectives in your CV that cannot be proven, it doesn't help you in any way. And the ATS is also not going to pick these words up. Yep. And with that, I am ready to move on. So again, this is another job ad. The key points to pick up from this job ad is 10 years relevant experience, and area of interest is business finance, wealth management, private banking in an international bank. The rest of it are actually adding on to this. So if we can move on to the next one. Okay, this is the same person who has formatted his resume in a different way. So I'm going to talk about, you know, parts of this, and then I would also invite Charlene to add in. And those of you who have questions about this type of format, again, please feel free to talk to us. Yeah, senior management professional at the top, over 15 years of experience. Okay, this is simple and good. Very clear cut. I get a good picture of what this person has done. And then acknowledge for, okay, words like acknowledge is probably not very useful to you. But other than that, right, I'm okay with this particular career summary experience. However, there is one issue. If you look at that sentence that says confident in taking up challenging senior managerial assignments to utilize acquired skills in accomplishing. So, you know, by the time you hear me read it out, I think you would have understood in your own examples that if your own CV reads like this, it's going to be very, very hard for the person who is reading this to want to pick you up for an interview. By the same token, however, this is a clear evidence that this person is detail-oriented, which is a trait that we want in finance managers. Yeah. And then for the core skills, the general comment we have for, you know, people who want to showcase their core skills, that column on the left-hand side of your screen, is that it is generally a good idea to list down your core skills, or if you want to call it core competencies or key skill areas, it's a good idea, but do not put a rating to it. So if you can see in this case, right, this person has actually put a rating to it because it is a double-edged sword, right? It can make you look very bad when you rate yourself poorly, and it also raises unnecessary questions in the mind of the reader about how good are you really. So again, our objective is to avoid elimination. So that's there for you. And then the rest of it, the executive summary. Now, if you notice this particular executive summary, in terms of the keyword matches with the actual job ad itself, the match is there. However, this being a finance managerial role, what is lacking in this executive summary is hard numbers. So if you look at things like, you know, well-versed in various policies, now that's not a very strong statement. And if you look at bullet number 1, 2, 3, okay, bullet number 3, adept at planning. So again, in this case, the candidate applies adjectives to himself or herself without any evidence to support this particular adjective. So that's not very helpful in the context that this is a finance role, and for finance roles, we are expecting a lot of hard numbers in your CV. Yep, so that's all I have for this. I'm going to ask Charlene for her comments.
Right, thanks, Eileen. Yeah, so I totally agree with you in terms of the hard evidence, the measurement metrics, performance metrics that is expected of a finance professional. Because if you're not able to articulate that, the hiring manager also will have some doubts, yeah, whether are you really an expert in this field. And I think I agree with Eileen as well, like the profile on the top and the executive summary. If you would like to have this format, I think it's fine. It's just that I think your executive summary then need to be have a blend of some hard and soft evidence so that it doesn't look repetitive. Yeah. So example, you know, the profile is already described that you're senior management professionals and blah blah blah. Then moving on to the executive summary, the last 2 points, and you talked about a responsible professional with positive attitude, and all that. Doesn't really land very impactfully, I feel. Yeah, it would be good to demonstrate it in a more evidence in a way that it really shows your ability in being what is your brand of a finance professional with a positive attitude. So what I mean by that is, if you are presenting yourself as someone with a positive attitude, what are the evidence that shows that you are someone with a very positive attitude? Yeah, how are you different from the rest, the finance professionals out there in the marketplace? Yeah, and of course, I do like this example where, you know, it talk about the proficient in different aspects and all that. And I think in today's context, some of the FI job order that I've seen for finance professionals, they also required very much to be able to state the regulatory framework that they're familiar with, the software. And also, these are very important. While the job description may not state whether you are required to be proficient in certain software, because I do have a finance manager who wants to go into trust admin, and our initial conversation was really about clarifying whether she possessed those financial software tools. So back to this example, it's the same situation as well. If you are proficient in those areas, it also shows that you're also hands-on. You're not just you know, playing an advisory role in that sense. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think Eileen has covered everything. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Before we move on, right, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try something new because today we have an exceptionally quiet audience. And I am going to ask the audience, Clarence and Theo, I'm going to answer your questions in a while. But at this point, I'm going to ask the audience to participate in the Q&A. And remember, you can do it anonymously. So I want to ask the audience whether you have been guilty of actually putting in all these, what we call fluff words in your own CV. Just give us a yes or no. Also, we've got audience who, wow, okay, so none of you have ever used these fluff words. And would the audience now like to share, okay, would the audience now like to pose, my next follow-up question is that, how, in what ways, or if the job ad is asking for example, team player, what have you written in response to that in your CV? Or do you not even address that at all? Wow, okay. Thank you, Clarence. Super honest. I like that answer. Co-partner, okay. Okay, and the rest of the audience. So I have so I have almost everyone who has responded saying no, you have never used any of these fluff words in your CV. That's great. I think team player has wide meanings. Yes, you're right. And team player can only be evidenced from the CV itself, whether you worked in a team before and during the interview. Okay, and my next question, okay, I'm going to leave Charlene to ask another question while I will answer Clarence's question, as well as, yeah, Charlene, you help me think of the next question to challenge our audience. Okay, so Clarence had Wait, what was Clarence's question? Okay, if an employer indicated MBA preferred and we do not have it, does it shortchange ourselves and possible not shortlisted? Okay, if the employer says MBA preferred, and if it doesn't cost me, more than a few hours of time to apply, I would still apply. And however, the next answer to your question is, if you're not shortlisted, we would actually never know why. And we do ourselves a favor by not concluding that, oh, I was rejected because of MBA, because in real life, we get rejected for all sorts of reasons, and some of it need not have to do with the actual qualifications. The only exception that I would have for this is if MBA is being listed as a hard requirement. Yeah. And then I have got, we had a question from Clarence just now, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think he's asking about what are some of the examples of positive attitude.
Okay, positive attitude it may or may not come through in your CV, but it will come through if you have a LinkedIn account. In your LinkedIn profile, it will come through. And that positive attitude, it will also come in by the time you get through to your interview stage. So at this point, we also want to remind everyone, I know this is often not talked about, but if you have left the previous role with any sort of negative emotions, or if your months of job search has left you very dejected and disappointed or bitter or anything like that, please make sure you detox emotionally before going into an interview, because this kind of energy or aura, like we would like to call it, just spills out quite naturally. So be careful about that. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could build up on that, on detoxing some of the toxic episode that one gets in the previous firm or anything like that. It is important because like one of, I think the comments said that someone said that, oh, I'm totally honest in my resume, right? Yeah, but what does it mean to be totally honest? Yeah, does it include some words being chosen that you are making a judgment on the firm that you're going to be applying for? Like example, I have a candidate who came to me for interview prep, and he has this challenge about answering questions about what's his greatest weakness. So if there are certain values that you embraced and you state that in your resume, right? Similarly as how you prepare to answer during an interview, you need to state it professionally, okay? Instead of saying that, oh, I need to be totally honest, I will not lie and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course, honesty is the best value, okay? But as a professional, you need to state your achievements as the way that you present it from a very objective perspective, not where you mention it where you are criticizing, the team leader for not supporting you, and so you have to step up kind of thing. Yeah, so it's good to be honest, but be objective. So that in any case, of course, like Eileen said, if you need to process some of the, emotions that you had because that team leader was not stepping up or whatever, right? So you can write on your own a few times first before you are comfortable. Then you transfer the clean version and a very objective version into your resume. Yeah. So, and of course, sometimes you may wonder if the way that you craft it, is it appropriate? I mean, we all have blind spots as well. All right. What you can do is you can consider actually having a chat with the career advisor, like Eileen, myself, or my colleagues who are here today, Alan, Lionel, or Adrian. You can have a chat with us. Yeah, just to get a third party perspective. We can of course have a chat with you on that front. Yeah, because it's good to be professional, it's good to be honest, but it's not good to put in the additional emotions that we have when we were running the project that we are very proud of. Yeah, because sometimes in the running of projects, sometimes emotions may run high and things like that, right? But you don't want to focus on that. You want to focus on the actual fruitful outcome that you have achieved for yourself. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. And before we move on to our next profile, I'm going to stop a while to answer some of the questions that have come in. Okay, just to round up what Clarence said about team player, right? And Kitron, I think that's the name, teamwork. So teamwork is not a place where you say, you know, great at teamwork, team player in the CV itself, but in your CV, you can actually write down things like you work in a team of X people, or you participated in 10 different project teams that are cross-functional across different time zones or something like that, if that's happened to you. And then as an operations member, okay, I'm going to take that question next. Hannah, I'm going to address your question first. If the role is for team lead, department head, etc., but all along I'm officially an individual contributing team member, okay, that's fine. How to convince them you can lead teams? Hey, you don't have to, okay, your actual title is not there, but you do have experience. Actually, oh wait, hold on, question disappeared. Okay, you don't have.
Sorry, I thought you answered.
How to, yeah, you can convince them because you see, you have an experience training and coaching and mentoring. So what you need to do is to drop the word unofficially from your own vocabulary.
That's right.
Yeah, so
yeah, you see this unconscious bias that we have on ourselves, right? We have done a great work. We have done project works, we train junior staff and lead a batch of onboarding junior teams and train them up and all that. But you keep reminding yourself you're unofficial. But if you don't claim, you can drop it and claim it by stating this exposure that you have as someone with leadership potential. So in your achievement, then you can categorize it, like I mentioned earlier on, you can strategize it by focusing on those that is very important for the role that you're applying for. Then you state this kind of exposure as one of your key achievements. So it's really to increase your evidence, right?
And Hannah, you said that you are the boss's second in command, right? Simply then put it into your CV or your LinkedIn profile or both that you are, you know, the boss's second in command. It doesn't need to be an actual title that's been given to you by the company. So remember, your objective in that CV is to get yourself an interview. The fact is that you were the boss's second in command. The company need not have given you an actual title or put it on your name card, but it doesn't subtract from the fact that you have actually done it. So my suggestion is to actually put it in within your CV itself. Yeah. And then wait, so I just want to make sure that I've answered everyone's questions. Yeah.
We have some questions on the chat box.
Yes, I'm trying to see. Okay, Clarence, as an ops member, you can only be individual contributor. Okay, there are some exceptions. So I would say never. And if position under CCP program to IT related from position, okay, and candidate head. How should we write that on the CV? So under the CV, right, if you have, if you have got experience, if you've got experience, typically in the experience segment of your CV, you will want to put in this stuff. And if you have spent, say, for example, half a year actually attending a course, and during that half year, you were not doing a job, but you are a full-time student during that half year, then I will put that half year as a stint on its own under the work experience section. So that's point number one. Point number two, if the courses you took was in addition to your normal job at a certain point in time, but you feel it is important to you in your job application to a IT related role, then have it somewhere in the executive summary or the core competency section. So remember, because this is important, our objective is to make sure that the reader calls you up after the first half a page. So you want to make sure everything that you're trying to use to sell yourself goes into that first half page. And okay, how to get onto the IT training programs?
Can we understand? Are you referring to like the career conversion program, or are you referring to those IT training programs under, like, example, for Singaporeans, there's the SkillsFuture credit, right? So not sure where you're coming from on that, but I think if you're talking about IBF annual intake for the career conversion program for the technology and finance immersion, well, do keep a lookout for it. I think it'll be sometime next week. Yeah, right? Yeah, sometime next week. All right, so do check our IBF events calendar. All right, if you registered for this, you know where it's cited. Yeah, in our website. Okay, so there'll be announcement about the tracks available and all that. So I hope you guys are prepared for it, because we would like to support you as much as possible also in your application. Yeah, so any questions, yeah, do feel free to email to us if you need a career advisor support over at our email at ibfcareersconnect@org.sg. Okay, yeah. Anything else you want to add on? Is there other questions that we need to answer?
No other questions, but it's time for us to send questions to our audience.
Okay. Well,
I've got Charlene can think of more questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so my first question to the audience is, how many of you have executive summaries in your CV? Hello, audience.
Somebody raise hand.
I think Yoman raised hand. Yeah, so the attendees can actually raise your hands.
You can put in the chat. Yeah, you can put in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, not everyone has.
Yeah.
Okay, not everyone has. And my question, okay, and those who have your executive summaries, after looking at these examples here, did you manage to pick up some useful tips, or do you now feel more strongly that your current executive summary is as good as it gets? So that's a yes or no question. Yeah. Okay, I don't seem to have any other responses. And how many of you have a section within or next to the executive summary where you list down your core skills or your core competencies?
2.
Okay.
3. Okay.
Yeah. Almost everyone. Okay. And of your core competencies, of those of you who have your core competencies listed, right? Take a look at your core competencies. How many of you have got things like team player, independent, growth mindset, or results oriented under your key skill areas? I mean, these core competencies. Again, you can do it anonymously. So this is, yeah. Thank you, guys. Partial, okay. Thank you for your responses. Those of you who have responded, it's very helpful for us. And for those of you who have got these, what we've highlighted as not very useful terms within your key core competencies, right? If you can give us specific examples, either within the Q&A section, like Hannah has, or within the chat box, we will be able to recraft them for you within this session itself. Okay. And we do have, yeah. What if experience? Okay, we do have a question from someone, Chris. What if experience is too much for the job, since most are rather downsized due to Singapore wanting to create more positions to cater to massive influx of immigrants? Okay, experience is too much for the job. So again, if you're applying for a job that you feel that you have too much experience for, you can downplay your experience. So what this means is those of you who've got 20 over years of experience like Charlene and I do, you may not want to have a CV that dates all the way from 1998. So you would probably just want to highlight the last 10 years, and then the rest of the years, it is your discretion to either, not even to mention it at all, or to have a simple segment to say various jobs in this or that sector.
Yeah, again, it all goes back to, if I may add on, to what's your understanding of the job description? What is that focus in terms of the experience that they're looking for, and the skill sets, the software tools that you need to be good at using. Then going back to your career history, you picked on those areas where you're able to showcase your experience and your skill sets. You get what I mean? So that means that you need to make sure that you're fairly matchy with what is the requirement in the job description. All right. Yes, we all have put in all our hard work through our years of career, 15, 20 years, right? But we need to remember who is our target audience, meaning what is required in the job description, and how then we can shape and strategize our resume content to the job requirement. Because it's no point telling them the whole long history where they only have time to just read a one-pager example. So you need to focus on which aspect of experience that you think will be most attractive to the hiring manager, and you crystallized it and shape it that it's more that makes it relevant to the hiring manager. Yeah.
Okay.
So somebody asking how to get back into related area if not industry. Well, it really depends, on a couple of areas, really depending on how long you are of the industry, and whether the field that you want to get back into, is it a very deep technical area of expertise? Like example, we do see a fair number of IT professionals, right, who wants to come back into the banking sector. Then what are their skill sets? And I recall I have someone who was an IT command center professional, okay, in the banking, and after being retrenched a few years ago, he wants to come back. So he did quite a fair bit of reskilling himself, and also looking at programs that could help him to bridge the entry back. So these are areas that you can look at, or they may not be a single bullet solution, but these are steps that you need to take, and of course through your own network that you could put together your resources to gain entry back into the industry. It requires some patience, some effort to understand what is in the job description, what is required, and whether your resume are anchored on the area that it's most relevant to the hiring manager. So if you can take effort for that, it would be better. Like example, IBF, we do have ongoing virtual fairs. It is our part of our effort as well to provide a fairly warm platform, because other than a core application that you sent out, you need an exchange platform, right? A conduit of some sort for you to show your FaceTime with the hiring manager, but you don't know them. So it's through virtual fairs that we run, and a couple of our candidates were able to pitch themselves other than having their resume prepared. Of course, they do some of my candidates even do a bit more research work on the participating FIs to get to know more. So these are all part of ongoing effort to gain your entry back into the sector. Yeah, and it takes a bit of time, so you need to be a bit more patient with that as well. Yeah, anything to add on, Hini?
I don't have, but okay, thank you, Hannah, for that question again. And I was going to ask everyone, right? I did have, okay. I'm going to answer Hannah's question, but I did have another question to ask anyone. Okay, I'll answer Hannah's question first, then we have another challenge for everyone. So yes, versatile and adaptive professional known for excellent writing and thorough analytical, detailed editing and curation of business and banking content. Experience in wholesale banking. Okay, Hannah, remember what I said. Thank you, Hannah. I want to applaud you for being so open with us, and we really appreciate it. So I want to give you kudos for this. Versatile and adaptive professional. Okay, remembering our example from earlier on, limit the number of adjectives that you add on to every sentence. Yeah. So I will drop the segment that says versatile, adaptive, professional, known for excellent writing and all that. And instead, because for your type of role, I'm going to suggest this. On your right-hand side of your CV, have a tiny little column where you can insert one-liners of compliments from past clients. So instead of saying that you are being known for excellent writing and blah, 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 have actual comments or compliments from past clients in a tiny little one column on the right-hand side to help you along. So that goes into, say, the first half of your, first half of your CV, yeah? So experience in wholesale banking, and so instead of saying your experience, put in the years of experience, which you already have somewhere down there, up-to-date marketer. It's understood that you are up to date. So you can just say marketer with 20 plus years experience, 8 years as litigator. Okay, in this case, right, your areas of expertise are quite diverse. Legal and marketing. So you might want to have a think about, not sure what kind of jobs you're applying for, but if you're applying for 2 different buckets of jobs, I am suggesting that you have 2 versions of your CV. One for focusing on legal, and the other one focusing on marketing. So consider that. And then experience in developing, managing, winning class. Okay, that first half, right? Your experience in developing marketing and comm strategy, managing, winning client engagement strategies, and all that. So I would want to condense that into having served clients with marketing budgets of up to how many, and in terms of the campaigns, whether they were global, regional, and what is the campaign reach, and so on. Yeah. So that's suggestion number 2. So again, these are suggestions. Eat the meat and spit out the bones. Okay. Okay, so no need to say that you are curious about, conversant with all these. Your sentence that says you are curious and conversant with all these is better off written as a story within your LinkedIn profile. Okay, and then skilled at cutting through. Now, if you're skilled at cutting through jargon and translating all that, right? What you want to attach. I am assuming that in this case, you are looking for a marketing position. So what you want to do is to attach as part of your application, right? Probably one sample portfolio, however you want to present that, to show how you have translated a complex concept into something that that is simple. So that's my suggestion. Rather than actually saying that you can do it, show it. Yeah. Banking, currently engaged. Yeah. So I'm hoping that helps, Hannah. Charlene, feel free to add in anything.
I think it's great. Yeah, really, it's showing more of the evidence rather than using generic descriptive words. I mean, which are great, like you rightly mentioned, good for LinkedIn and all that. But for executive summary or professional profile on your resume, this is a bit too long. So need to make it a bit tighter and specific in terms of really, I think what stands out for me is I think your exposure with ESG and sustainable finance. If you do some Google search and all that, you would know which FI to focus on, who are piloting some of these initiatives, to pitch yourself to them, okay? Because you need to know what are your strengths that you want to pitch to, and that will help you to make your profile more succinct and more relevant to the hiring FIs who are embarking on in big ways in this ESG and sustainable finance space. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think in terms of marketing, the analytics part of things, do not need to go into very much detail about the analytical detail editing and all that. I believe this could be found in the core skills or competency segment. Yeah. Yeah, because the other areas that is important would be like the kind of analytics tools and the different platforms that you use in your marketing campaign, or how you overcome. I think this profile need to be tightened, yeah, and the rest of the resume should provide more evidence than like detailed down a bit more. To expand on what you described in the profile. So try to imagine that this resume document, the first page is like the front page of Straits Times. So what will be the header that you want to capture the attention of your readers? So that header is very important. What kind of expert are you? Okay, like I mentioned, I really like that you have this good exposure in ESG and sustainable finance. So this is really one of your core, and your exposure in terms of your expertise with the analytical part of things and campaigns, because in marketing, it's either you are someone who manage like have exposure with like those agency of records kind of coordinator kind, or you're the hands-on type. So from this profile that you share, I sense that you are someone with some hands-on campaign strategy, campaign management, and all that. So I think you can shape this a little bit more, yeah, and hopefully you have a more targeted outcome from your job search. Okay. Right. Anything else that you want to talk about on the next slide?
Okay. So to our audience, right, we actually only had one more example, but looking at the profile of our audience, I'm going to use the remaining time. I think we've only got, what, 5 minutes or so, is that right? I'm going to ask the audience another challenge question. Is there anything radical that you've experimented with in your resume that you believe helped you to get interviews? Come on, guys. Has anyone tried anything radical that helped you to get interviews?
Has anyone been very passionate about picking up data analytics skills, and you use it to do a data visualizer for you to track your application and also track down who you want to connect with on LinkedIn and stuff like that? Anyone tried that kind of stuff? I'll be interested to know. Because one of my candidates, what he did was he actually did a data analytics course, and also at the same time wanting to pivot into data analytics and all that, right? So he did a trending, so able to tell me a lot of insights in terms of the kind of roles that, what kind of job type, you know, gives him better responses and whatnot, and yeah.
Oh, okay. And for those of you who have said that you're not radical, right? So remember, in some of your cases, I think Hannah, you're one of them. In your case, if you're looking for a marketing role, you are probably better off putting in some kind of a small portfolio. It can be just 1 or 2 pages, something visual in your application, rather than a totally word-based resume. That will probably help your case better. And yeah. And oh, I've got one more.
No, awesome project, Clarence. Yeah, so Hannah, I think you definitely have a good treasure box of campaigns that you could use. So definitely I would encourage you to categorize them, list them out, depending on what's the role, what's the focus of the role that you're applying for. And I think what Eileen shared about sharing some of this campaign portfolio in a sense is really helpful, because it also tells the hiring manager whether you understand what they are looking for. Okay, because what kind of examples what kind of campaign you're gonna choose to showcase yourself, is going to provide that added evidence. And perhaps I can share with you on my candidate. Actually, what she did was, the project that she did was being used as like best in class case study for her firm. And after she left the firm, she was actually quite thankful for that project, because she was actually able to use it. And she even back before COVID, so she was actually doing up like, in school days, we do it in a bank card sheet, right, kind of presentation. So she actually extracted from the firm's website and was able to illustrate on that kind of project achievements, what was she passionate about, and what's the outcome. So that actually landed her in the job, eventually. So if that is something that you have on your resume or in your own Excel data, it'll be good.
So to answer, okay, Hannah's got another question. A portfolio can be a hyperlink to a microsite. Yes, if you add attachments, it will be very long. Try to have like maybe 1 or 2 pages of attachments. Additionally, if it blows up the file size too much, you can have hyperlinks, but have a one-liner describing the hyperlink. Yeah.
I think like similarly, like some of the candidates that we come across who wants to who are going into this data science track, right? You know, all of them have their projects being hosted on GitHub and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So similarly, you can also use such kind of platforms, to help yourself.
And those of you who don't have a LinkedIn profile yet, I would really strongly suggest that you start having a LinkedIn profile, especially if you are as young as 40 years old.
Oh, we need to also take a pause here while Eileen think of the next question or anything like that. We need to run a poll. Can Alisa help to run the poll, please? Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody for the nice questions and the dialogue that we have. I hope that this collective learning here, where some of you are more of a silent observer and all that, you know, you learn from the questions being asked and some of the sharing that myself and Eileen, you know, has provided you with. So really would be very grateful for you to provide us with your feedback, whether this session has been helpful and useful for you, so that we could take reference, be able to improve on this session, or maybe use other examples that could help you to better relate and also improve your resume. I think our biggest wish for doing such session really is for you to be able to go back to your board to review areas that you want to improve. If you already have a career advisor who's working with you on your career journey, on your job search, please do have a follow-up with your career advisor, so that you can discuss areas that you have improved, and so that if your career advisor do come across you know, any job postings and all that, whether it's on LinkedIn or anything, you know, you guys have a more fruitful discussion, you know, after this session. So this is really our wish. And of course, I need to also want to provide you with our email if you are interested to seek the support of a career advisor. I will provide you with our email, then you can write to us with your request. Okay, give me a second.
And okay, while Charlene's doing that, I've got one question from Hing. Completed 6 months SGUT on AI and data science, but lack working experience. Okay, lack working experience is okay. Put that 6 month stint as one of your job experiences. So therefore, it doesn't come under any other section, but it comes under your experience itself. In your wish to pivot to another industry. So again, make sure that in your pivot, you are having sufficient transferable skills, and at least I would say at least 50% match to the intended to the target roles. In your application, you will understand as you go along. There should be a point in your desire to pivot, right, where you are able to tell whether, okay, I'm going to persevere in this pivot, or no, I'm going to change track and try another pivot. How to show it in your resume. So again, remember just now we talked about the core competencies or the skill sets of what the job description requires. So you just need to make sure that in your resume, you can provide evidence of you know, those required skill sets, and to help you before writing your resume, use that comparison technique that we showed at the beginning of this section. I mean, this session. And I'm hoping it helps you. And if it doesn't help you, feel free to sign out and come and see one of us.
Right, so we've come to the end actually of our session, and we hope this has been helpful for you. And those of you who have not filled up the survey form, please help us to do so. Yeah, so we've come to the end, and if you're interested to attend other webinar done by our fellow colleagues and all, do check out our IBF events calendar. All right, otherwise, myself and Eileen will just hang out for the next few minutes, okay? Just in case there's someone shy and wants to on video talk to us.
And Clarence, thank you for asking that question, right? In job search journey, I have a tip to share with everyone. It is the 50% rule. So, you know, when you ask 10 different coaches, friends, spouses, partners, friends, and all that, right? You know, half of them are going to say, yes, you should do this. The other half will say, no, you should not. So if you know, if I were to answer your question, I would say it's great from my perspective to have, oops, the question disappeared again. I'm going to say, yes, it's great to have a portfolio because it is always better to show than to tell. And just at the end of it, just go with your gut. Yeah, if you feel that no, you really refuse to show a portfolio, by all means, go with your gut. Yeah. Because your own resistance is going to show if you're doing something that you really don't want to do, but a coach told you to do. So that's all we can say.
Yeah, I think it's about the situation that you see yourself in. I've seen candidates who went to a boutique firm for some data analyst kind of interview. And after doing solving the problems, right, they usually the assessment is like you solve a data problem, right? And eventually after the interview asked her to clarify her recommended answer. Then she get a sense that it doesn't feel right, you know, then subsequently she didn't hear from them about the job because she felt that she has addressed the case study issue. She has like provided the solution, but she leave out certain details because she wants to know whether, you know, there'll be a final interview, right? So for such kind of situation, you really need to leverage on your own vibe because we are not there as career advisors, so we can't quite tell you. Okay, like what Eileen said is really a 50-50. So you are your own best you know, assessor of the interview, whether it's something that you will want to proceed with or not. Yeah, of course, your friends and all that, depending on, you know, how close they are with you or your spouse and all that, of course, they have their own aspiration and expectation of what you should do in your life, your career, right? But the thing is, you yourself know what sparks for you. What is it that you enjoy doing? Like, not everybody can go on the data analytics career track. If you're someone who likes to engage with people, like to talk to people like Eileen and myself, right? For us to be in a 9-to-5 job, just doing nothing but data analytics, I think we'll be very bored. Yeah. So, but there are people who loves to be working on data, who likes to take messy data and clean it up and create interesting insights to propose to their boss or to share with their boss. There are people who thrives on that. So after taking a course in data analytics, example, you may want to ask yourself, is this something that you can imagine yourself doing? So that's the most important thing. Because when you go for interview, the interviewer will ask you why. Yeah. If you are answering using the same answer as many other candidates before you, then you probably won't stand out. Yeah. Right. So your why must be very clear. Okay. All right. So we actually have come to the end of the session. I'll just stop share. Okay.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our session today. I invite everyone to connect with us either on LinkedIn or just write in to us if you don't already have a coach and you'd like someone to pace you on this journey. And so wishing everybody all the best.